Very bad things are happening in Kenya right now. 16 people have been shot dead by the police. Yes, their own police. 16 people, nobody's talking about it. It's like 16 cows or 16 sheep. Like, they have no value at all. And we cannot just watch and stay quiet. And I think this is one of the purpose we are Africans. I don't believe in countries. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't believe in countries. I believe we are brothers. We know we are one continent. They came from Europe and they divided us into small countries. Countries never existed between us before 1884. There was no such thing as country. Yes, there were tribes, there were clans, the Zulus, the Xhosas, there was the Yanzis, the Pangas, the Yungis. They all existed. The Akans, they existed. The Malians, they existed, but not the countries. No, not the countries. Today they lie to you. They say your brother is only the person from which tribe that belongs to your country. It's a lie. Your brothers are people from the soul you belong. We're going to talk about it, whether it's in Togo, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Burundi, Mozambique. We are going to talk about it because we are one Africa. Whatever happening to my brother over there happens to me too. Yes, bad things are happening in Kenya right now. The police are shooting people. 16 people have been unalive, shot. And you ask yourself why? Because they are claiming something is legitimate for them. They want to be respected. They want the government to work for their benefit. You know, my mom used to say to me that the way you treat your mother in public in front of your friends is the way the public will start treating your mother. And the way you treat your partner, whether it's your husband or your wife, the way you speak to him in public is the way the public is going to speak to him. So don't be shocked when the neighbor screams at your mom after you screamed at your mom in front of the neighbor. Don't be surprised when they talk to her with less decency if all you do in front of them is talk to her with less decency. Africans are always here screaming and shouting, especially black people in general, talking about the injustice in America, talking about racism, how Donald Trump is sending people back, how the police in America is mishandling people, shooting people just because of driver's license and registration. You were speeding up and pop.
Can I see your license, please? Get a car! Get it!
We always complain about that and we talk about how bad this is. This is unacceptable in 2025. And you got to ask yourself a question. How do we treat each other in our own continent? People talk about how France is racist, Germany and all that stuff. Talk about how mistreatment we get in airport, the way they put us to the side, we be marginalized. How are we treated within our own continent and our own people? That's a good question to ask. Sometimes people talk about xenophobia. You go to the next country and nobody likes you. You go to the next country and you're being pulled away by the police. The question is, how does your government treat you? How do you expect white people to respect black people if this is how you treat black people? You shoot them, your own people. Why? Because they're claiming something that's illegitimate. They're claiming something is legitimate and you shoot them. And they're never going to come back anymore. They're gone. And you're doing politics. Now, what's happening in Kenya, fellas? Well, in Kenya, it's mayhem, havoc. Look at this. Yes, it's happening in Kenya. Now, the Kenyan people, props to them, they are not afraid. They always voice themselves. They're going to go down the street to ask for answers from governments. They are not afraid. I know many nations are very much afraid. Not many, but some of them, very afraid. They will never speak out. They'll rather be slaves than dead. You can treat them whichever way you like, provided you leave them alive, it's fine. Kenyans are not those type of people. Now, the Kenyans came to the street. Why? Because a year ago, many Kenyans came down the street. Now, you're asking yourself, in 2024, why did Kenyans come to the street? They came into the street because there was a bill that was going to be promoted as a law in Kenya. What is this bill? It's called the Finance Bill 2024. The Finance Bill 2024, basically, I'm not going to get into details, was basically a bill voted by government officials with the goal of generating more money for government. Why do they need that? They need money because the government had been spending money in a way sometimes that was not necessarily the way they planned to spend. Therefore, they needed money coming from somewhere. But this time around, they couldn't get money from usual people like World Bank and IMF and China as a debt because they are already indebted very heavily to these institutions. So the alternative was what? The alternative was to get money from the people. How do you get money from the people? You raise tax in many things, usually the basic necessities like tax on bread, tax on period pad, tax on cancer treatment, tax on most legitimate and most simplest things. So for the very normal person who has not a lot of money, needs to buy bread, he has to pay an extra amount of money as a tax. For the very sick person in the hospital looking to be cured, looking to be fine, has to pay not only the medication, but also a tax on top of a medication. We're not even counting the disease that is going through. Now, for the lady every month that need to buy a piece of pads to protect yourself for whatever that thing is, has to pay an extra amount of money for that period pad. Now, the Kenyan people say, no, we cannot accept this. We are not the reason why you misspent the money. You wasted it into things that were not necessarily the things for which you had asked the money for. You know how it happens in Africa. Usually they go ask money from World Bank or IMF. These are institutions that will borrow money to an African country with the goal of constructing something legitimate. Simple example. An African country wants to build road. They can go to World Bank or IMF and say, please, we need money to build road from this town to that town. It will help us economically. This World Bank or IMF will give them the money and say, okay, we're going to give you the money, but you have to reimburse with interest. In the same token, an African country may want to build an hospital, schools, malls, or anything of that sort. They can go to World Bank or maybe China to ask for a loan. But once they get the money, in most cases, they don't spend the money the way they had planned to spend it. Because most people in politics will use some of the money for their personal purposes, like buying big houses or building big houses for their personal purpose. At the end of the day, they don't achieve the initial goal for which they had asked the money for. They end up in debt and with nothing to show off. As an alternative, they wanted to take money from the people. So let's get the people to contribute for their little earned money. And the people of Kenya said, no, we are not accepting this. They went down the street. They marched peacefully. Then it became violent. And many people were unalived. Now, later on, President William Ruto came on TV saying, I have heard the people. The people have said they do not want this bill because there was a lot of pressure against the government. Therefore, me as the president, I have decided not to accept or sign this bill. This bill will not be signed. We will take measures and we will make a change into the government. President Ruto proceeded into removing many people from office in a way to change an image of that government that looked like it had unalived people.
Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024 and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill.
In that moment, many people were arrested and many people were unalived. And the calm came back into Kenya, okay? When the calm came back into Kenya, people thought that they had moved forward, moved past this situation. Fast forward, fellas, 2025. President Ruto goes into signing the bill that he refused to sign last year. After doing small changes here and there, changing some phrases, he since signed the bills. Now, the people of Kenya are not happy at all. They went down the street 1 year after many people were unalive in the street to remember, to celebrate what had occurred a year ago. Obviously, you went to the street 1 year ago in 2024, and some of you fell after they were shot by the police. Next year, you say in commemoration for that 1 year, we are going to the street and celebrate again. They were met with very strong resistance. This is the reality of what's happening in Kenya right now. And many people have been shot, 16 people unalive. They're talking about 400 people wounded and hurt badly. Now, among the small changes that have been done from the previous version of the bill, the parliament removed the clause that would have allowed the KRA, that's Kenya Revenue Authorities, unrestricted data access. Now, KRA requires court warrants to access bank account or M-Pesa records. For those of you who don't understand, this is basically a way to say that the previous bill said that Kenyan Revenue Authority could access all your financial data to the T and go and tax you. And we're not talking about business and enterprises here. We're talking about normal citizen with very little salary or no salary at all. You still need to pay the tax. So the previous bill said they could automatically, they had no needs for warranty, no need for permission to access your data. Now, this change they've made, a very small change, saying from now on, you're going to need a warrant to access your bank account or M-Pesa. What is M-Pesa? You know, in Africa, not everybody has a bank account, okay? Because not everybody has a bank account. It's very difficult to deal financially. So what they've done is they've created a way, because you have a cell phone, because most people have cell phones in the world, we can use your cell phone like a bank account. You can basically put money into a cell phone and send it to somebody else's cell phone, and they can withdraw the money from an ATM or whatever board. You get what I'm saying? So instead of using a bank account, they can use your cell phone number as a banking system. Now, the Kenyan Revenue Authority wants to access people's cell phone to check what's in there so they can tax people. And the people of Kenya say no. Well, the reason why you don't have money right now is because of the decision you're making. It's because of the spending you're doing. Civil societies in Kenya say that telecom group violates constitutional protection. You cannot allow somebody to get into somebody's cell phone without their permission. It's unacceptable. Number 2, the Kenyans are very angry because of Mr. Ojwang, who was unalived a couple of days ago. I don't know if you remember, we spoke about this. This is a man who is a teacher and also an activist. So he made a social media post talking about some policeman who's doing things that are not necessarily good. Okay, he mentioned about this policeman saying he's not happy with how he's proceeding. Guess what happened to this person? They took him away from his home. They took him 350 kilometers away from his home. You know, normally when you get arrested, they will take you to the police station, the nearest, right? That is when things are legitimate. The guy was not taken to the next police station. He was taken 350 kilometers away. That's about 220 miles away from home to another city. That's where he was put. And the next day, they found him unalive. When they found him unalive, the police report said that he was unalive because he was banging his head against the wall. Now, how do you bang your head against the wall? Then, after forensic was done, they realized that the man had been choked. He had trauma on the head, which does not corroborate with the theory that he was banging his head against the wall. So basically, the guy was unalive because he made a post about a police chief. Now, my question is very simple. If you're going to be a police chief or a public servant, you must be open to criticism, because that is not your father's job. You decide to become a chief in a public service, you are working for the people. So you must be ready to be insulted, ready to be criticized. Same as a president. You cannot decide you want to be a president and not to be criticized. Then go to your village and be a king, because kings are not criticized. If you're going to work for the people, people are going to criticize you. People criticize even Jesus. Not everybody likes Jesus. Even his own people unalived him. You know, even God doesn't have it's the support of everybody. There are many people that don't believe in God at all. So you must be ready to be criticized. Now, this person, whether he said negative or wrong things about the police officer or the police chief, did he deserve to be unalived? I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, this is somebody's son, somebody's child, somebody's husband, perhaps somebody's father, you know, a breadwinner. He brought the food in his house. Now, these people are going to cry for him forever just because of a personal ego. People of Kenya were very angry about that. And we saw again in Kenya vendors being shot. This is a guy standing in the street who's clearly, as per the video, not making any problems. He's followed by the police and shot to the head. And later on, we heard that it was a rubber bullet. But if you shoot somebody with a rubber bullet at close range, what do you expect? This is what the Kenyans are fighting.
To every police officer, I give you my assurance that the government of Kenya will support you, will stand by you. You cannot intimidate the police. You cannot use force against the police, or insult, or threaten the police.
Now, as this mayhem started in Kenya, something very interesting happened. TV stations were filming live, broadcasting what was happening between the civilians and the police. They were told to immediately stop broadcasting live what was happening between the police and the civilians. Now you're going to ask yourself a question. What is the purpose? Why would you tell the TV station not to broadcast live what's happening between the police and the civilians? Unless you have some dodgy, weird ideas. Like, what's there to be hidden if everything is happening according to the law with the respect of the Constitution? Unless you think you may be doing, or maybe you had given, or maybe the soldiers, maybe somebody received negative